Animal Farm Part 2, The Machine, The Self-Authoring of Animalkind, by Crystal Dawn. Also, side note, this book was published through Ex Libris, so they did all their proper copyright content stuff, and yeah. So, unrestrained energy. If my embodiment I desired to change, for a new life perspective be gained, I'd choose one of great thoughts, so many a physical form could not contain. I'd float freely, physical restraints unchained. No needs would have I, just thoughts, materializing thoughts. And how would such power not be in vain? I'd divide my focus mongst my 3 little girls. A hush of sweet whispers their minds I would fill. Surround them with kindness, faith, love, and goodwill. And if there's enough of me still, I'd radiate joy through the masses untilled. Just a spark of flame can ignite, a burning so strong, it captures the night. Crystal Dawn. George Orwell sat with paper and pondered, how could you communicate with the future? It was of its nature impossible. He succeeded in achieving the impossible. His literary works will be alive and available to help guide mankind to the brightest future possible. Crystal Dawn stared at the screen. She had been planning for years to finish writing her grandfather's stories. Would she be able to capture just the right words to do what needed to be done? Constantly drawn in cross-examination, she shook off the thought. Focus, she told herself. You have the outline and know the story. Just start writing. May 1st, 2022. Move, pretty cat. Okay. I am just a poor boy, though my story's seldom told. I have squandered my resistance for a pocket full of mumbles, such are promises. All lies and jest, still a man hears what he wants to hear and disregards the rest. Simon & Garfunkel, the boxer. Crystal Dawn stared at the screen blankly again. One more cigarette to help clear her mind. She had originally intended to sit and write a simple book, Animal Farm Part 2. Recently, upon greater research of Grandpa George, she came across his writings of 1984. Within 2 days, she had devoured the first 8 chapters. The book 1984 was truly a personal message written to the future to avoid the pitfalls of mankind's natural selfish tendencies. Crystal was amazed by the accuracy of predictions and amused when Grandpa George was off. Of course, there were reasons he couldn't have been too plainly spoken, for this book was publicly circulated. Anyone had access to its pages. In 1984, Crystal was conceived. She was born when Rashnish ended and the spirit of loving community faded from Osho's lifeless eyes. Through the Aquarian lens, she arrived on January 26, 1985, in the mystery cusp. She had a passion for everything. Like Boris Pasternak's Dr. Zhivago, she loved life. As Grandpa George had predicted, hope lay with the pearls. Whether it was intended to be so, Grandpa met a woman named Constance White in England. A young, wealthy aristocrat from Canada, she had traveled with her 2 sisters, Edith and Mary. Their father was Walter Woodworth White, a surgeon that served in the Legislative Assembly of New Brunswick as a member of the Conservative Party representing St. John City from 1931 to 1935. He was even the lead surgeon in the Halifax explosion. They were not in want. It is unknown how Connie, as she was called, happened to carry George's seed, but she carried it all the way back to Canada. And a girl was born, Helena. The only child of Constance and her husband John. Helena was sent to boarding schools, receiving no love from her socialite parents for not having been born a boy. Growing into an attractive young slender woman, She looked the part of a socialite, but was a wild child at heart. She met a German soldier and fell madly in love. His name was Eric Kleinode. He had been a boy of 16 when the SS soldiers came to his home and took him and his 2 older brothers. He said in retrospect, "If you are ever asked by your country..." I looked up the cat. Sorry. "If you are ever asked by your country if you can shoot a gun, say no." His family lived on a sugar beet farm and hunted their own food. They unfortunately had been good with a gun and were sent to the front lines. His short military career as a child was astounding. Current party laws in 2022 make it illegal to tell such stories, and one would most certainly be branded as a racist or, worse yet, a neo-Nazi, the most disgusting, feared opponent of all that is good in 2022. He tended Adolf Hitler's horses. He said he really liked him at first, but he went crazy. Eric also was on a tank detail where they would sneak in the grass and lay traps. They found a tank, disabled the track, covered the sights with mud, wait for men to open the top, and drop a grenade in. He sat on the top having a cigarette when it blew, killing all inside. We can't be proud of him and the things he did as a child of 16. While it was impressive, he never died. The acts he performed were forced upon him as a child, and he rarely spoke of it himself. They lost the war and became the pinup for hatred. Eric was just a smart kid with 2 older brothers. They were on the front lines of a battle, and he told his brothers to keep their heads down. They didn't listen, and as such, each received a bullet to the head. Eric panicked and jumped into the river before them. He was captured by the French. He said they were the most hospitable people, and when they released prisoners at the end of World War II, he made his way to Canada. Helena and Eric owned a butcher shop in Spiritwood, Saskatchewan. He was a self-taught carpenter that both designed and built many houses, single-handedly, and with the assistance of his son. Their daughter, Crystal's mother, worked with Helena in the butcher shop. Although Helena was more than willing to walk away from wealth for life as a parole, she had a yearning in her soul that was quenched when she was called upon by Jehovah's Witnesses. There was a time when she would take the awakened watchtower and race to the garbage to see if she could dispose of them before they left the walkway. For some reason, a change occurred in her that made her receptive to the truth. The Truth is a highly in-depth perceived cult that started in 1872, and in 2022 it has 8.7 million members. It is in our time the most known and unknown religion that exists to date. They want to tell everybody, and nobody wants to hear. In the purpose of creating the book Animal Farm Part 2, The Machine, the Jehovah's Witnesses will be represented by chickens, henny pennies if you will. They're found globally and can constantly be heard making sounds. No one actually knows what they're saying, and even if they did listen, it ends in doom. As just predicted, the relationship between Eric and Helena ended in doom. Their daughter was taken to be raised in the truth. Strangely enough, how everything is connected. It was in 1948 that the Shell Lake Massacre occurred. Its sting was felt throughout Canada as the worst family killing at that time. She and her brother went to school with the sole survivor of the massacre. They personally experienced her energy and both made a point of passing the story to their offspring. Crystal Dawn sprung from thought. There were always so many thoughts to be had, so many other thoughts to be considered. One cannot merely exist in a state of thought, for there is much doing to be done. The year 2022 was divided into doers and non-doers. The non-doers were typically takers. Not always, as there were always known variances in any species. No one actually spoke of this clear definition of doers and takers. Takers were at the top. The perceived capitalists with top hats, the Molly Joneses that dreamed of a life of ease. My God, if Grandpa George could have really known this as the future, it is no wonder he pondered, why should one feel it to be intolerable unless one had some kind of ancestral memory that things had once been different? So many great thinkers and artists have filled the world with all the words and goodness that would be required to start the self-authoring of mankind. Crystal Dawn knew what needed to be done. At what is considered middle age of 37 to Pearls, she didn't know if she even had the time required to do what needed to be done. She had been taught from birth that she did not know the hour when her master would arrive, but to be at the ready. God would end this system of things and a new system would begin. The sky was filled with myriads of angels. One clear throne shone in the sky, and the rest of the space filled with the blurred faces of an army, withholding their fury like a ferocious pit bull awaiting its owner's command. Crystal blinked it away. She was outside, sitting on her porch, and her family drove away. It is believed they were going to visit family, help with chores, and visit the cliffs. It must be frustrating for them to have to repeat themselves so many times. Alas, Crystal Dawn had a full life, and those with full lives do not typically have time to think for themselves. Human relationships made harder in 2022, and many had completely given up on them. Crystal believed we truly grow when we interact with as many people as possible. She spoke to anyone that would carry on a conversation, and just as Jesus is a gentleman that does not force himself on others, so too Crystal did not force herself on others. It was more of a playful, hey. She met her life betterer Erasmus during the Great COVID. That in itself was a great feat, as the party had made illegal the visitation of individuals from different households. Like the Brady Bunch, they raised 6 children together, so conversation was typically drawn to petty issues typical to Pearls. As the mother of the household, and with Crystal's skills excelling at communication in both written and oral, and a high capability to use emotion and logic simultaneously, it was her responsibility to be her family's soundboard. It is difficult to listen. One must put aside their natural inclination to make mental connections to relate to the speaker. You see, if the listener is to hear without bias, there cannot be preconceived ideas. This is why George told us, until they become conscious, they will never rebel. Until after they have rebelled, they cannot become conscious. Hope was with the Pearls. Orthodoxy means not thinking, not needing to think. Orthodoxy is unconsciousness. In 2022, people did not want to think for themselves. The music drowned out the few centimeters of space that was their own. Whether it was music to inspire growth and thoughts, or tick-tock sounds of nom nom nom. It had been a long time since a musical artist rang out globally to inspire change as Tracy Chapman, John Lennon, and Simon and Garfunkel had once done. Jerusalema soared and inspired many, and will join the list of contributing authors to the self-authoring of Animalkind. World change would take everyone. Not one individual human was the enemy, but a brother and a sister in this world we live in and create with our daily actions. Frustration pulsed, making the pressure stronger in Crystal's head. These days, her head almost constantly rang with the pressure pain behind the ears, probably needing more water. We always need more water. The pondering of why we would choose something harmful for ourselves or not intake that which is proven good is just bewildering. In 2022, half of the world does not have a clean water supply, while the other half is literally burning fossil fuels, contaminating the water, to recreationally enjoy moving fast over its surface on boats. As a society, they have the technological means to move fast on the water without contaminating it. But the Pearls striving to join the party will not rise up against their employers and threaten their lifestyle. There are doers and takers throughout all mankind. They are not limited to a race or the user of a substance or a financial bracket. The vast majority of the party was made up of previous Pearls who had worked hard for their position. Some had indebted themselves financially to join the party. Some gave of themselves sexually. Women were still fighting for equal rights and a true voice. The only problem was that the most extreme voices rang out. A young girl named Greta fought for immediate environmental protection action. She was discredited for her age, lack of wisdom, and her harshness turned the ears of capitalist conservative Republicans. PETA staged extreme displays to create fear, anger, and disgust. They said they wanted animal rights, which most people do, but they used hate to fuel the machine to create a bitter decades-long battle separating hunters and vegans. The year 2022 was so full of divisions, and it was only worsening. People of our day needed an Animal Farm Part 2 to see how we have the power to save this planet, ourselves as humans, and all the other species we cohabitate this planet with. Only then, when we join together in love for this common purpose and put all the divisions aside, will we be able to see an end to this system of things and bring about the new system. Crystal Dawn went outside again for another smoke break. It was there outside in the open sky that she could see the vastness of the heavens and the great might of God's army. She sat on the paint-peeled porch boards. Her partner repeatedly offered to make her a chair, but she preferred sitting on the ground. The decorative bench that did sit on the porch held a rather large wood elephant. Crystal loved to sit with the elephant in the room and watch people walking by, offering a smile or wave to anyone that would engage. She lived in a natural art studio in Vernon, BC, near the city's main shopping mall. She had held this shop previously as a taxidermy studio, but had recently decided against being like old George Reeves stuck in a Superman role. She had a long way to go in her career, and someday her fame would make it clear that she had to be a Superman. I had to. Taxidermy was just an educational means to an end. Her partner and life betterer, Yerasimos, was absolutely everything that Crystal was not, and vice versa. It was an amazing partnership made better with loving communication. Nobody is perfect, and that is the point. We all carry little pieces of experience to help build each other so we can grow. Yerasimos is an amazing man and will appear many times throughout this tale, as he is truly one of the selfless authors of self-authoring mankind. He deserves his own chapter. No, book. But this is not that.